is a beautiful place and it's well known, people love it, but people come here for a couple of reasons. They come here for the mountain, they come here because they want to see grizzly bears and wolves and caribou and moose, and they tend to overlook the fact that the park has an incredible avifauna, incredible bird life. And I think it's also fair to say that most of the park's attention has gone to big charismatic megafauna, big mammals, rather than birds. And yet we have birds that breed in the park here that in their migration spread out over 3/4 of the world's surface. They go to the places from which Denali's visitors come. My name is Scott Weidensaul, and I'm a writer and researcher based in Pennsylvania, but I've been coming up to Denali National Park since 1981. Denali National Park and Preserve, because it's so big, because it's so intact, holds in trust for much of the rest of the world, literally millions of individual birds that breed here. But once those birds leave the park boundary, they face a host of threats and risks where they travel. And if we're going to preserve that diverse, rich, intact bird life that we have in the park today, we need to know where these birds go, and we need to work with agencies and governments and nonprofits around the world to try to protect them.
I'm Laura Phillips. I'm an ecologist for Denali National Park and Preserve. We're going on almost 20 years of monitoring of our passerine birds in Denali National Park and Preserve. So we know a lot about the trends in some of those bird species as far as abundance and density. We picked our study species for critical connections based on our long-term monitoring data. So we're seeing different trends in some of these different bird species. We've got fox sparrows that are increasing at about 8% annually, Wilson's warblers that are decreasing at about 4% annually. Presumably, since they're using some of the same shrub habitat for breeding here in the park, some of these changes are driven by what's happening outside the park boundaries on wintering grounds. We have a highly migratory bird population up here that go to 6 different continents across the globe. And what we know about migratory birds in Alaska is minuscule, and part of that has been the technology. So not until recently have tracking units become small enough to deploy on our smaller bird species. I think what's astounding to me, you know these birds as individuals because they're tagged, and then they come back to the same territory and you see them there, which in itself is a miracle that this bird traveled thousands of miles over the winter, crossed an ocean potentially, made its way back, is in the same location, and then you manage to recapture it and take off its geolocator, and this bird has provided you with this incredible data. And some of these birds, well, all the birds that we're working on here in Denali National Park, this is the first time this data has ever been collected on these birds and on these species. So they're providing this information that's completely new about their ecology, which is incredible. One of the most common breeding birds here is a beautiful little yellow and black songbird called Wilson's warbler, bright yellow with a little black cap. And they weigh like about as much as a nickel and a penny put together. They weigh almost nothing. The old Wilson's warbler, he spent the winter in Nicaragua or Guatemala, somewhere in Mesoamerica. We don't know what stopover points they're using along the way as they're migrating, because they take off from Alaska and they've got to fly to Nicaragua or Guatemala. They're not going to make that in all one flight. So they're going to stop off along the way, rest, refuel. We don't know where those stopover sites are, but what we do know is that somewhere along that path, once they leave Denali, something bad is happening to them, because the population of Wilson's warblers in the park is only about half of what it was 30 years ago. It's still very common. Any visitor who spends any time looking for them will find them, but it's a really worrisome trend, and we need to know where these birds are going when they're not here. And so Critical Connections grew out of that, just to try to find out more about the park's birds and help the Park Service and the visitors celebrate and appreciate those birds.
Through the Critical Connections project, MPS scientists have undertaken an effort to document the migration routes, wintering areas, and stopover locations that Denali's migratory birds depend on.
Our study species for Critical Connections specifically are a suite of shrub species that nest and breed in shrub habitats here in the park, including Arctic warblers, blackpoll warblers, Wilson's warblers, box sparrows, hermit thrushes, and gray-cheeked thrushes. And then we also have one boreal forest species, the Swainson's thrush.
In summary, the Critical Connections Project studies 7 migratory bird species in Denali. In Denali National Park and Preserve, over 170 different bird species have been documented.
All 7 of those birds breed in shrubby habitat or young forests. And those are habitats that are expanding dramatically in Denali National Park. So we want to understand how that shrubification of the park is affecting those birds. And some of those species of birds their populations are increasing dramatically, and other species like Wilson's warbler are dropping dramatically. And why? We don't know. So we're going to try to find out.
Scientists use tiny geolocator devices to map a bird's migratory journey. This newfound technology measures light levels and time, which are used to calculate approximate latitude and longitude on a daily basis. Discovering where birds go and the important habitats they use will allow scientists to better understand the challenges these birds face along their long journeys to and from Denali National Park and Preserve.
I'm Ian Stenhouse. I'm the Senior Science Director from the Biodiversity Research Institute in Portland, Maine. Geolocators are very small devices that simply log very simple data. That's what makes them so small. It's not a satellite transmitter that's sending a signal that you can follow an animal in real time. This is a very small device consisting pretty much just of a small light sensor, a chip, computer chip, and a battery. As small as you can get. And they weigh a fraction of a gram, which allows us to track really small birds.
Each species contributes to the overall diversity. Each species contributes to the overall stability of the ecosystem. The more diverse an ecosystem is, the more stable it is. A lot of them are insect-eating birds, and anybody who has swatted a mosquito in Denali National Park understands the importance of having insect-eating birds out there. So again, just trying to get some basic information so we understand what risks these birds are facing, so we can try to mitigate them, so we can try to keep these common birds common. The time to save a species is when it's still common, not to wait until it's almost on the edge of extinction.